Argentina suspends flights from Brazil, Chile, and Mexico to curb the spread of COVID-19. At least 5 people have been killed after building collapse in Egyptian capital, Cairo. And China and Iran signed a 25-year strategic cooperation deal. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm José Daniel Lopez in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Argentina has suspended all flights from Brazil, Chile, and Mexico to curb the spread of COVID-19. The measure comes after Argentina reported almost 13,000 COVID-19 new infections on Friday, the highest single-day increase of new cases in mid-January. According to the Health Ministry, over 55% of intensive care units are occupied as well. Travelers returning from abroad will also be tested for COVID-19 before boarding a flight upon arrival, and 7 days later, local media reported. A similar measure was already in place for flights from the United Kingdom after a new variant was detected there in December.
I was in Sao Paulo, so the entire health system and hospitals were quite collapsed, with a lot of demand, so it seemed appropriate to prevent the same thing from happening here, or what is happening with the new strains and everything that is happening there in Brazil.
It's fine that they do it for tourists, it's fine, but if it is for war reasons, they have to let people in and out for war reasons, because if that's not allowed, I will be just another unemployed person.
We go to Colombia, where at least 43 people had been injured when a car bomb exploded in the municipality of Corinto in the department of Cauca on Friday. A vehicle blew up in front of the municipal mayor's office, damaging the building and several nearby houses as well. There were reports that at least 43 people were injured. After the explosion, the security personnel and first responders flooded to the scene to assist the victims. The Minister of Defense announced that he will travel to Popayán, the capital of Cauca department, where he will meet with the Security Council to investigate the incident. No group has claimed responsibility so far, but the government blames FARC dissidents for the incident. In the midst of economic strangulation measures by the United States and the impossibility of negotiating the purchase of vaccines from transnational pharmaceutical companies, Cuba turned to its own scientific development rather than wait for the system designed by the World Health Organization to guarantee the delivery of doses to poor countries. Cuba developed its own vaccines against COVID-19.
This is the prelude to the mass immunization of the Cuban population against COVID-19, to begin next June with the country's own vaccines.
I'm a little nervous, but calm, proud to be able to receive the vaccine after so long.
The final phase of clinical trials of Abdallah and Soberana 02, the two most advanced vaccine candidates of the 5 developed by Cuba, is currently underway with more than 90,000 volunteers. At the same time, an intervention study on 150,000 frontline workers is evaluating the effects of Soberana 02 on populations at risk.
Health workers in a general sense, to test firstly the effectiveness of the vaccine and secondly to decrease the infection rate.
The island is testing its scientific and technological sovereignty in a range of areas, with immunizers using the same recombinant protein technique used by the US biotechnology company Novavax. Cuba is thus projected to be the first country in Latin America and the Caribbean to produce its own vaccine against COVID-19. But if it succeeds, it will make these advances available to other countries in the region.
Beyond the fact that we can benefit financially, which is not what motivates us, it is our pride to have candidates for vaccination. It ratifies who we are and how we are. The fact that our product will be on the international market competing with so many other companies of such high renown is a reason for us to be proud.
As part of these trials and preliminary studies, Cuba's authorities expect more than 2 million people to be immunized before June, including all the inhabitants of the capital, in the month of May.
I am am afraid of it, because it is not the same for me to administer it to a patient as it is for them to give it to me. But well, as long as it is for my own good and for the good of society, I am here for that.
Once the emergency use of these drugs has been authorized, the intervention studies for the whole country will continue according to sector. In August, it is expected that more than half of the Cuban population of 11.2 million will have been vaccinated, and all the island's inhabitants by the end of 2021.
Mexico became the world's third country to surpass 200,000 coronavirus deaths. As fears grow of another wave of infections after Easter, the number of people dying from the illness has fallen from its winter peak, and hospital occupancy has also fallen after hovering 90% for weeks in the capital city of Mexico City.
Lots of people, good people, bad people, have died, and it hurts more not being able to say goodbye as they deserve.
If I do not die from COVID, I can die from something else, but I do worry about all the people.
In the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, local NGOs are playing a key role in fighting the coronavirus epidemic and providing support to residents of poor neighborhoods neglected by the authorities. Local NGO Redes de Mare implemented a system of home visits to keep infected residents of the city's poor neighborhoods safe, providing them with medical care, food baskets, and cleaning kits. Deliveries are made to a dozen addresses a day in Mare, a cluster of 16 favelas with 145,000 inhabitants, while efforts are also undertaken to raise awareness among residents to adopt measures to protect themselves from the virus.
We are delivering supplies and meals to residents who visit the tent, COVID-19 tested sites, and test positive. So we give them this meal to prevent them from going out into the street, and we accompany them for 14 days, the period during which they remain sick. They receive these kits, which help them to clean their homes. They come with alcohol, bleach, and soap, and the meals are because sometimes they are very weak and can't cook. So we provide them with food, and it helps them a lot.
Peru's electoral body has been distributing electoral materials and COVID-19 protection kits as part of its preparations for the April 11 general election. The National Office of Electoral Processes is distributing ballot papers, ballot boxes, electoral polls, and masks for polling stations across the country under police protection. The vote comes as the COVID-19 epidemic worsens in the country, with the health system on the verge of collapse, and a series of corruption scandals regarding the unauthorized vaccination of high-level officials, including former President Martín Vizcarra. Peruvians are set to head to the polls to elect the successor of the interim president Francisco Sagasti, installed after Vizcarra's impeachment, and to elect a new Congress. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. At least 5 people have been killed and dozens injured after a 9-story building collapsed in Egypt's capital, Cairo. It was not immediately clear what caused the building's collapse, and government officials say they are investigating the issue. Rescue workers were still searching for any survivors trapped under the rubble. The government has recently launched a crackdown on illegal building across the country, jailing violators and, in many cases, destroying the buildings.
When the diggers arrived at the site, they expanded the area and pushed people away and started working, searching for survivors. While I was there, they removed 4 bodies. They could see others, but they couldn't bring them out.
Egypt's prime minister announced that compensation will be doubled for the victims of a deadly collision between 2 trains on Friday that killed at least 32 passengers and left more than 160 injured.
Based on the instructions given by the president, we agreed on doubling the payment of compensation that would have been given for such accidents. God willing, when all the state apparatus reunited, we will talk about 100,000 Egyptian pounds for death cases and between 20,000 and 40,000 Egyptian pounds for injured cases, depending on the type of injury.
Sudan has received a shipment of Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines donated by the Chinese government. China has been helping Sudan and other African countries in the fight against COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic. China donated batches of medical supplies to Sudan last year, and Chinese team of medical experts was sent to the country in last June on a 2-week mission to support its fight against the pandemic.
This month marks the 50th anniversary of China-Sudan Medical Cooperation Protocol. I am glad the vaccines arrived on this occasion. It once again shows the deep friendship between the Chinese and Sudanese people. Whenever Sudan is at its hardest time, China always stands with us, and it has provided us assistance in all areas, including in healthcare. China plays an important role in the global fight against the pandemic.
Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced on Friday that Eritrean troops will be withdrawn from the country's Tigray region. After months of denials and reports of human rights abuses, the Prime Minister acknowledged that troops from Eritrea were involved in the fighting in northern Tigray, where the government launched a military operation against separatist forces last November. The Ethiopian PM claimed that Eritrea was concerned it will be attacked by forces loyal to the Tigray People's Liberation Front.
Fighting ceased on November.
A French commission of historians have presented a report concluding that France bears overwhelming responsibilities for the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. President Emmanuel Macron ordered the creation of the commission in May 2019 to analyze France's role in the Rwanda genocide from 1990 to 1994 through archival research. The report confirmed long-standing claims that France, then ruled by late President François Mitterrand, did not do enough to halt the massacres that left at least 800,000 people dead, mainly among the Tutsi ethnic minority, but claimed there was no evidence of complicity in the massacres. However, the Commission concluded that France was involved with a regime that encouraged racist massacres and remained blind to the preparation of a genocide. Vice President of an association of Tutsi survivors, Jessica Ngwisa, has welcomed the report.
These terms, overwhelming responsibility, failure, is not something new in fact. It's good if political discourse takes these terms into account. It changes a lot because there is a lot of denial, particularly in France, due to the presence of genocide perpetrators and their families on the territory. So the fact that politicians are finally taking these strong words into account can only be a good thing because it allows this feeling of impunity to be reduced.
The Syrian government has stressed that it will spare no effort to restore normal life in areas recently liberated from terrorist groups. The efforts prioritize the restoration of infrastructure and public services. Our correspondent Hisan Wanus has the story.
Normal life gradually returns to the towns of the eastern Ghouta region, east of Damascus, an area that since its total liberation from terrorist gangs in April 2018 is experiencing a continuous voluntary return of its inhabitants, who were forcibly displaced by extremists and who, together with the authorities, continue to work to repair the damage caused by the terrorist occupation.
With the support of the government and state institutions, citizens were able to return and recover their lives. And after 7 years of terrorist occupation, the people who returned to their localities and homes with much enthusiasm and determination to rebuild, work, and sow your lands, full of faith in a better future.
The area had suffered much damage due to terrorist attacks. But thanks to the joint work of citizens, social actors, municipalities, and different ministries, we have managed to recover the course of life, even though much remains to be done.
3 years after the liberation of Ghouta, 2 centers of the public communications institution in Mila and Hitet al-Terkman were opened after its rehabilitation. One of the many achievements in the field of public services that Damascus is striving to reestablish, despite the European and American economic blockade, in order to guarantee a dignified life for those who come back home.
This was achieved thanks to the sacrifice of our brave soldiers and citizens, and we are currently continuing the work to rehabilitate all the damaged establishments, an issue that would improve the lives of the citizens and the economy of Syria. We work to ensure a dignified return of the refugees and displaced persons. We have restored electricity and drinking water. And we are currently working on the rehabilitation of communication centers, and this center is one of several that were reopened, and we are confident that the future is better.
In the same framework, with official and civil society efforts, dozens of schools that were damaged have been rebuilt, destroyed, or used as centers of operation of terrorist gangs. In addition, thousands of workshops and factories, with few resources, were reopened. A joint effort covering the services, education, and industry sectors, among others, showing that the terrorists and their sponsors failed to fulfill their plans to stop life in Syria.
Hisham Wannous, teleSUR, Ghouta Oriental, Syria.
We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back. Myanmar security forces reportedly killed 93 people on Saturday, in the deadliest day since last month's military coup. Soldiers and police in Myanmar used lethal force to suppress the latest protesters against last month's coup, with scores of people reported killed across the country. The death toll in Myanmar has been rising as authorities grow more forceful with their suppression of opposition to the February 1st coup that ousted the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. According to the Assistant Association of Political Prisoners, at least 328 people have been killed in the post-coup crackdown so far.
That is not justice, that is a brutalities, that is a massacre. Why UN stay waiting for anything? We call it that. How many dead bodies UN need to take action on those shooters? Right now, we hoping the international society do not silence, but taking speak out is not enough for us. We need real assistance. Today, you can see that military is doing that brutality of the killing. How many times, how many people are needed to show that is a massacre and that is a human atrocity? So that's why we want an international society just only saying condemning, just saying subtly, just saying about releasing the statement is not enough. We need a dual respectful supporting to us.
In India, voting is underway in Assam and West Bengal in state elections that will show how support for Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding up amid the pandemic. The elections in the two eastern states on Saturday are the first since the farmers' lunch protests that have been mainly in the north around the capital, New Delhi. It was the first phase of voting in both states, and the results will not be known for months. Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party currently controls 1,000 of India's 28 states with alliance partners in several others, but it has never won power in West Bengal. Neighboring Assam, home of 32 million people, is polarized along ethnic and religious lines, with immigration from neighboring Bangladesh one of the biggest campaign issues. And in Bangladesh, at least 5 people have died and many others got injured during a protest against the visit of Indian Prime Minister Modi. Hundreds of people demonstrated outside a major mosque in Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, as Narendra Modi wrapped up a 2-day trip to the country with a visit to a Hindu temple outside the city. Clashes, which began Friday at the main mosque in Dhaka, spread to several key districts in the Muslim-majority nation of 168 million, leaving 5 people dead and many injured. On Saturday, thousands turned out to protest against the police and Modi's visit for the Independence Day celebrations. Many accused Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party of fueling religious polarization in India and discrimination against minorities, especially Muslims.
Narendra Modi is a bloodsucker. Where he goes, blood sheds. In Gujarat, in Kushma. Now in Dhaka, we don't want this terror in our country. Immediately leave Bangladesh and save your honor, or else we will beat you out of this country.
Iran and China have struck a 25-year strategic cooperation deal. The deal was signed by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Negotiations for the deal launched 5 years ago, but virtually no details of its contents have been released. But the two governments have agreed then to establish a roadmap for reciprocal investment in fields of transport, ports, energy, industry, and services. China is Iran's leading trade partner and was one of the biggest buyers of Iranian oil before the US President Donald Trump reimposed sweeping unilateral sanctions in 2018 after abandoning a multilateral nuclear agreement with Iran. About 1,000 people have rallied in Portland, Oregon to protest against the upsurge of violence against Asian Americans in the United States. The crowd gathered at Harrison Park for an event featuring speakers and performances, as well as an array of tents where people offer resources, information, Asian food, and pizza. The event came the week after a series of shootings at 3 Atlanta area spas, where out of 8 people killed, 6 were Asian American women. Stop AAPI Hate, an organization that tracks and reports violent crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, tallied nearly 3,800 incidents from March 19, 2020 to the end of last month nationwide.
My whole life I've experienced this like microaggressions and subtle racism because I grew up in Oregon and it's all white. So I felt like I never had a voice and like I would see this my entire life, so it's not new. This is something I've always experienced and seen, but today was a moment for us to speak our truth and just come and share really what we've been seeing our whole lives.
Portugal has begun vaccinating teachers and other school professionals with the AstraZeneca vaccine as the country undergoes a reopening plan. On Saturday, nursery workers and primary school teachers were in the priority group, but officials hope to offer jabs to all teaching staff before the reopening of the secondary of schools on April 19th. Portugal resumed administering AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines last Monday, a week after temporarily halting its use due to reports of blood clots. It comes after the European Union's Drug Regulatory Agency concluded after a review it couldn't rule out a direct link to those cases, but it says the benefits of using the vaccine outweighs the possible risks. Over 1.3 million people in Portugal have had a first COVID-19 vaccination.
I feel safe in that, and this is an important step to overtake this problem of the pandemic and to work in a safer way.
And in Canada, medical staff taking part in a vaccination campaign conducted by Humber River Hospital in Toronto administered 320 doses of the Moderna vaccine in a single day to members of low-income communities, mostly seniors and immigrants.
This is one of our outreach programs. We are partnering with our Ontario health teams and taking the vaccine to communities with high incidence of positive cases. This is one of these communities where the positivity rate is really high, and we want to reach the seniors and make it easier for them to receive the vaccine without having to leave their home area.
And with this story, we come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.